welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark, and I am with my special guest today, Derrick UnstoppaBoles Boles. How are you, buddy?
Man, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm so good, man. I couldn't be better. Final Four weekend, man. Things are crazy, and you're in Houston right now, Derrick. That's pretty awesome. And I just actually came from Houston. I will not be there for the final game, unfortunately. Are you going
Okay.
to the final game tomorrow night?
Yeah, I'll be at the final game. I'm just excited because it's such an interesting tournament. And there's no number one seed, so nobody knows who's going to win the whole thing.
Like, I don't know if it's ever been this wide open, man. Like you usually get in this weekend and it's like, holy cow, the best is the best, rise to the top. And man, this is a maybe a lesson that there's more parity than ever. And you know what? Teams can rise up and Goliath can be slain, man.
Oh, no question. And I'm going to add to the conversation. The transfer portal has really made nothing but parity happen because players now, it doesn't really matter how good your team was in the past. If they show up and they want to play together and they want to work together, they can change who's going to be the national champion. And so that says a lot right there. Says a
Yeah,
lot.
you're right. I was super excited to have like this Hoosier type moment to see like a Florida Atlantic win a national championship, man.
Right.
I thought just maybe, and I got to tell you, like that first half of their semifinal game, I thought, wow, these guys are absolutely for real. That was some of the best 20 minutes of basketball I'd seen.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you what, even yesterday when they played San Jose State, that was an interesting game to watch. But I will say this, San Jose State did not give up. And you saw what happened.
Oh yeah. San Diego State. San Diego State. Yeah. Yeah, they were resilient, right? I really felt like they could have just flushed out and gone away very easily and nothing there, right? I mean, and they did not go away. And
Oh, yeah. Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, stuck to their guns, man. They're all about D, and they were like, you know what? If they can shoot that well in the second half, we're probably going to have to tip our cap to them. But you know what? They did not play the same second half. A lot of pressure. So, well,
It is a lot of pressure. It
yeah,
is a lot of pressure.
there's a lot of pressure. So, for everyone, thank you for joining us on the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark. I am a three-time World Series coach, international speaker, consultant, and longtime coach in professional baseball, as most people know, coaching in 3 World Series. And for Derrick, my guest here on the Winners Find a Way show, a fellow Michigander, which I loved,
Yes,
we're
sir.
bringing it back to the roots, bringing it back to the Mitten State, and Detroit native, and grew up around the Belleville, Ypsilanti area, and played at Belleville High School, which is a powerhouse here in Michigan for sure. And under a guy that I have not I have not seen this guy forever, Mike Garland, longtime coach at Belleville, just retired. Also, longtime coach with Tom Izzo at Michigan State. And I remember barely, by the way, back in when Tim Izzo took over, we were going at 100 miles an hour, and Mike was his first hire there. And as an assistant to Tom, trying to turn this thing around from a long time, guy, taking over a guy like Judd Heathcote, who I think he'd been there for 20 years.
Right. Right.
And a former national champion with Magic, and he big name in the area. And I mean, I can only imagine these guys, much like we're watching right now, the guy who has to take over for Mike Krzyzewski, right? Like, wow, that's not an easy job.
Oh, yeah. It's a big deal. And now it's so much more to it. Where before we were just focusing on basketball, but now we're talking about academics, we're talking about social life, we're talking about social media, we're talking about decision making. Like the game has changed in multiple ways, and so if you take over a big time job now, you got to be mentally prepared to handle it. You got to be a CEO. You got to
Yeah,
be a CEO.
no, that's really good. And I think, I was just going to say there's a whole nother business component now with NIL and business transacting and all the things that are going on there too. I mean, there are a lot of balls in the air for these kids. And as you know, I'm in the NIL space, and it is, I mean, these kids, it is big commitment to be a college athlete. I mean, and I don't think it's ever been bigger.
Oh yeah, well, and as you know, a little bit of my history. I've been living in Idaho for a while, and we have a kid who's a quarterback at Boise State, um, and Green is his name, and he's very very good. Probably has NBA upside that's off the table, and you know everybody's trying to, get at him. Everybody's trying to get access to him. Everybody's trying to influence him. But the truth is this NIL has really made it challenging because if I'm a kid and I'm thinking about having resources and access to money, I'm gonna try to do what's best for me, but not thinking about the long term repercussions because it's bigger than just receiving money. You got to pay taxes on all that money too,
Oh
just so
yeah.
you know. Big
Yeah.
deal, big deal. So we got to educate the student athletes too.
Yeah, it's a lot different than you and I were athletes in college, right? I mean, I think you played at Idaho State, and um man, when we were coming out, there was a lot to think about. Don't get me wrong, but man, it's very different now. And I talked to a lot of guys. I know you and I were down at the Super Bowl together, and talking to guys, and it's funny because everyone's, yeah, I would have made 1.5 million a year, and if I was in I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, you're 20 years old and you got 15,000 things to do in a day, and it's not easy to actually go out and get it done. But yeah, so that's such a big deal. So let's talk a little bit about Unstoppables is your podcast. You are the host, and Mike Garland joined you in that
Yep, yep.
podcast, which is very cool. Talk to me quick about that, about the message there on the podcast and how that's going.
No, no. First and foremost, I'm excited because one of the things that we love about the unstoppable tough talk is what we're calling it because we're not just focusing on athletics. We're focusing on everything that comes with athletics that could be a byproduct. So we're talking about life, relationships. We're talking about how are we dealing with some of the crises with the inflation. We're talking about the fentanyl issue. We're talking about everything because we have a different perspective, and you got to remember, you get Coach Garland and I on the podcast, and then we get a couple guests who really can add value to the podcast. People want to hear what we have to say because it's powerful. It's a big
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah. No, I think it's so good. I know you provide some online learning on the backside for leadership development. Um, just involved with the Black Colleges Coaches Alliance. Talk to me a little bit about that. I know they're meeting this weekend in Houston, and a lot of the NABC. Always a big weekend with Final Four. I mean, I know everyone thinks about the games, but there's a lot of development that's actually going on this weekend. A lot of learning, a lot of like, hey, let's get back to a couple things we're missing and what we're not doing well. And man, I think there's so many things from this athletic side that you're talking about that's so huge, and we're going to get into a couple of those. But let's talk quickly about what you've been experiencing down there.
Sure, sure. Well, obviously, being here at the Final Four, and people don't realize this is really a chance for coaches, for athletic directors, for people who understand the game of basketball, really to get a chance to come together, network, build relationships, and more than anything, spend time. And then, so this is the second time that they've done this, the second annual. And then I got invited. One of my good friends is Travis DeCreur. He's the head coach at Montana University. And then also Dietrich Taylor, who is a head coach out in the West. And they invited me to attend, and it was unbelievable. It was really good to have, and I want to make sure I say this because I think it's important to have, primarily minority leaders come together, right? Athletic directors, head coaches, Division One, all the way down to NAIA, all the way down to high school, all the way down to clubs. Everybody getting a chance just to connect and support and really brainstorm. And all that happening creates good stuff, right? Because nobody has all the answers. So we have to kind of be willing to, we got to take a step back and realize, hey, if I don't have all the answers, maybe I can get the answers from somebody else. And so it was really, really good, really good.
Yeah, and I think we need more of that, more of the encouragement from one another, more of the, building one another up, learning from each other. I mean, I love it's probably the one thing I love. I'm not a big skateboard guy, but I love the fact like when someone goes and makes a big move, everyone goes, "Man, that's awesome, Derrick." Dude, that's like everyone's encouraging, going like not the jealousy thing, like, oh, it's crap that they got a job and I didn't. I'm a better coach than they are. I'm a better this, like all the thing, man. Everybody's out there trying to earn it, and it's not easy, right? And so to get that encouragement from one another, I think is so critical right now. And man, if people would understand that better, I think it would be I think we'd be a lot farther along, quite frankly.
Oh yeah. Well, and unfortunately, and Trent, you know this already. We live in a time now with this cancel culture and this. If you do something wrong, then people just cut you off. And how can you get better? How can you grow? How can you improve if that's how we're gonna live our lives? And so we got to figure out ways to go back. And it's gonna sound crazy for those who are just getting introduced to me. I'm old school, right? Let's go back in time. Just go back for a minute and really understand like we have to continue to support, build, and really understand how to connect with people. And if we don't do that, then you're really cutting off your hand before you even get a chance to do anything with it. You're just chopping it right there. So that just food for thought. Food for thought.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things, Derrick, that concerns me is like, as you know, as a coach and a player, never, things don't go well when the fundamentals aren't understood, right? I mean, like, and you hate to see when you start getting that advanced level going, wow, we're losing because we don't understand some of the fundamental things that we can't do. And when I look at some of the game the other night, kind of coming back to that to the San Diego State Florida Atlantic, they gave up like 12 offensive rebounds in like 2
Right,
minutes. I mean, like
right.
fundamentals, like box out, right? Like let's get back to and if you just kind of go away for those fundamentals and think, hey, we're gonna be fine, we're not gonna be fine.
Well, and even at the event that I attended yesterday, the Black Coaches Alliance, one of the things we talked about, one of the talking points was kids, like you said, don't have the fundamentals. They don't know how to do the establish a pivot foot. They don't understand. They don't have those things that will make them become good because nobody has spent the time to teach them that. And
Yeah.
all that stuff right there is invaluable because most of the time, if you have a good foundation in whatever you do, your upside is unbelievable. But if you have a crazy foundation, if it's built on sand, I'm sure you've heard that before. If it's built on sand, it's got a chance to crumble right in front of your eyes. And so I just think we got to go back. I'm old school again. We got to go back in time and revisit how do we get where we became one of the best basketball, things in the world, in states and in the countries in the world.
Yeah. So when you think about that, let's take you back to high school and some of the lessons you learned along the way. I mean, competitive program. Mike's obviously, just a great coach and he's got a great experience and learned from some of the best for sure. Also a great player himself at Northern Michigan.
Yeah.
And then you go in and go, and I know, hey, listen, I'd love to be, I have a lot more fun working on my 35-foot jumper than I do working crossover, two-step jab to the left with the left hand, make a good two-hand chest pass, right? That's about as boring of a drill as you can get. And you got to do it, 80 times before practice starts. And free throws are boring. And, it's not exciting like the 35-foot jumper or the alley-oop pass we're working on. We watch this stuff on Sports Center, but we're missing the fact, like the boring stuff that wins games is like you said, no one's really holding these kids to that fire, to that discipline of the fundamentals. Did you feel like you got that when you were in high school?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. When I played for Coach Garland, we used to just do simple things like ball handling drills for an hour, just working on your left hand, working on in and out, working on crossing over. Like that's what we used to do. and the repetition, eventually you were doing it without even thinking about it because we've done it so much. And the same thing with chest passes and lobs and all that stuff. We would have drills where we would just work on snapping the ball, receiving the ball, stuff that nobody wants to teach because everybody has gotten to this idea that if you can have a kid go through a cone and react and all that stuff, that you're developing the player. But that really doesn't develop the player because there has to be some adversity to that player. Like there has to be somebody who's guarding that player, putting their body on that player, putting their arms around that player so that they can understand how to make a move and get bumped and still go finish it and finish the play.
Yeah.
Right now, everybody is using. It's really we're playing a game with the game of basketball from a psychological perspective because they're using the cones, but they're doing it really just to generate revenue instead of really trying to help people become good.
Mm. Well, it's interesting because we work in that controlled environment, right? Like that. Oh, hey, listen, I can work in this controlled environment and it's no problem. And then all of a sudden, it gets real at full speed, and that's one of my biggest pet peeves, right? Is kids practicing at half speed or not in real time or at real speed. And so if you're just going around cones, that's not real time, that's not real speed because there's not the body there. There's not getting around somebody, someone holding on your arm and like, oh yeah, that's called every time. Yeah, stop. Like that's not called every time. You know, you're
Right.
not going to get that. People are going to be leaning on you and learning to play the game that is so more physical than people really realize.
Well, and I want to add to that, one of the things that resonates with me is, even when I was in high school, one of my really good friends, Carl Bow, we called him Butt. Another one of my good friends, Rodney Hill, we called him Rock, and then Ron Hunter, we called him Heavy. And we would work out, we would shoot, we would go through ball handling, and then at the end, we would play one on one. Like it would be a game of okay, now we done all this work. Now who's gonna win this game to see how we're gonna play because we wanted to get better. Now, guys, I have a son who's 6'7", who's pretty special, and the coaches are so concerned. They don't want him to do this. We don't want to hurt his knees. I'm like, dude, if I survived and I'm sitting in front of this camera with you right now, Trent, smiling, I think he'll be okay. We're not going to lose him because he hurt his knees. Like, we have to realize we got to challenge people to become better. But unfortunately, we get in this comfortable space where we don't want to challenge each other, and that creates a lot of problems.
Yeah, and I think we're looking at that like, and it's a progression, right? Like, hey, I handle the ball on my own, and I do my drills, and then I handle the ball around cones in movement, and then I take it to the court and start working around some bodies, and then I take it to that one-on-one. Let's see if I can do it. Then I gotta move on that 3-on-3, 4-on-4 half court level and see if we can create space, and I can continue my skill level through activity and through multiple variants now. Then we take it to that next level. I mean, I think that's just natural progression, but I feel like we skip steps. But I want to come back to one of the things you just referenced, which is sitting here right now. What most people don't know is that you've been through the ringer on your health from the time 2013 really kind of set you off. I mean, a brain aneurysm, cellulitis, 2 strokes, 2 heart surgeries, L1, L5 for your back. I mean, this has just been, and was this caused from basketball? Was this talk to me about how this all started?
No, I think that's a great question. I think, sometimes, you get put in a situation, and I love even what we're talking about right now. Like, how do you become a 1%er? Well, I really went from going through being a high level athlete, playing at a very high level, played, Taipei, Taiwan, Japan, Australia, had a great career. And then when I finished, my body decided that it was exhausted. It was tired.
Yeah.
And so on the flip side of that, sometimes we have to be willing to listen and honor our bodies. And I really didn't want to honor my body. And on the flip side of that became the health challenges that you just listed. And so we got to really understand, like, a lot of that is, if you go hard and you do everything hard and you live hard, if you're not taking care of your body, there's going to be repercussions.
Yeah.
And so it was obviously it was a challenge, but I want to make sure I say this because I think this is probably the most important thing. I never lost my faith during that time. So even though I was going through it, my faith was as strong as it's ever been. So I
Yeah.
want you to feel me when I tell you that, because for me, that's really what I think saved me from not being here talking to you right now.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important because I mean, we talk about life or death. We talk about like, what that is, and very few people actually face that and come back.
Right.
And so we have these moments and we think like, hey, yeah, I'm gonna be strong in this. Yeah, I'm gonna lean on. And I've seen a lot of people that man, it's been tough, right? And they've lost their way through hard times. And I've also seen people that have gone through absolutely horrific times. And man, just the rock of their faith, it's just been like it's absolutely admirable. And man,
The
I
one percent.
it's back to that song of, do I have what it takes, when it really comes on the line, I don't know if I get challenged, am I gonna rise up?
Right. Well, and like I said, it's that 1% that I looked at, how we started the show. Like, you have to really have a chance, and I want to make sure I share this, to really look in the mirror and see what do you have, like, and then you have to really tap into that, because at the time your body's going through stuff that it's never been through. Like when I had my stroke, I couldn't speak for 6 weeks. So even though you hear me talking to you now and everything's good and clear, I couldn't make a sound. And not only not could I make a sound, my brain wasn't even putting the words together right. So you
Yeah.
got to put all that in perspective, and you can imagine what that does to you from a mental perspective, from a self-esteem and self-worth. Like, all that stuff becomes part of it. And I just think we need to really be talking about mental health. I think it's a big deal.
Yeah. No, I think it's no doubt. Let's come back to a little bit, of a one percenter. Every one percenter overcome some things in their lives. And by the way, there's a bunch of confidence in that, right? Because when we face hard things and we come through on the other side, we're like, hey, things don't look so hard anymore. And when you think about, people growing up in your neighborhood, right? And when things face tough things like parents divorcing or fathers going to prison, and you get these challenges along our way. Your dad loses his job, or alcoholism, or you name it, right?
Right, right,
We get a bunch of lessons in that, of if we're willing to get the lesson of, hey, they're not perfect and forgiveness is real. And I know maybe some paths I don't want to go down to avoid because I should take this lesson and learn. There's just all sorts of things there that I think the other challenge of this is when someone's gone through really hard times and then you ask me to run a 6-minute hard mile for practice. Like, yeah, like I don't love that, but like I've been through a lot harder crap than that. Like, like
right.
a 6-minute mile, like whatever. Like this is basketball, or this
Yeah,
is
this is
baseball.
nothing.
Like, this isn't hard. Life's hard. This is easy,
Right,
you know?
right.
So let's talk a little bit about when we talk about that 1%, I want to dive into a little bit of what you said something earlier, which is, on your show, you really start guarding into those other things, not the X's and O's of the crossover dribble or how to shield your body on a layup. Like the thing's really about, there's a lot of skill and talent out there. There's a lot of people giving instruction out there. That's great. But, I remember telling my son, as he was coming up and being recruited, like, hey, we're monitoring all these things on our kids, from how competitive they are, how disciplined they are, how well they're keeping and maintaining their health and their body, what food choices they're making, where are they at psychologically, are they coachable? Do they have a desire to continue to improve? Are they lifelong learners? Are they willing to sacrifice for their team? Are they good team members? And I'm like, hey, man, I haven't talked anything about hitting a ball and running fast and throwing it yet.
Right.
Like,
Right.
because at that level, everybody can do those things. So the intangibles, quote unquote, the intangibles, right, are the things that we're watching so well that ultimately lead to the success levels that we need. Talk to me a little bit about that, about your learnings.
Well, one of the things that I always say, um, it's a lesson or a blessing. That's really what it is. So if you keep your mind in a place where you can really look at it and think about it as a way for you to grow and change and develop, then it removes this victim mindset that a lot of people have, right? A lot of people just give up when things get crazy. And you got to remember, man, and you and I already know this, Trent, we only get one shot at this, right? You're only going to get one time to be alive. So you have to really take whatever you've been dealt, whatever cards you have in your hand, and then you got to play those cards and you got to decide how you're going to move forward. So when I was facing all of my health challenges, I said, okay, it's funny because if you look at me right now, I'm 270, lost pretty much 100 pounds because I realized, okay, if that's the situation, obviously I'm not taking care of myself the way I need to be taking care of myself. And I got to change my diet. I got to change how I work out. I got to change where I put my energy and who gets access to it. All that stuff becomes important because for me, at the time when you're facing death and it's just you and primarily the maker, right? You're talking to God about how am I going to stick around? You really get a chance in that solitude to really take a look inside your heart, inside your spirit. And that really changed, for me, that really changed me at a high level.
That's awesome. I mean, that's awesome. And I think that, listen, a lot of people have been through similar things than you have. And they talk about changing, they want to change. And then a recovery is made, pretty awesome. And we slowly drift back to our old ways, right? Like, so how does someone in your position, you've got a line and you're here and you want to go to that future reality, like your current reality, especially right when you recover, right? Your current reality is not great because you're like, hey, but now I'm feeling better. I want to go back to this future reality, which is going to be better. I'm going to be healthier. I'm going to be good for other people. I'm going to contribute in a lot of different ways and show people the blessing and the lesson that I've learned along this way. And so you got to get going, right? You got to take action. Talk to me about how do you stay along that line up to where you want to go?
That's great. That's a great question too. I mean, I think part of it is a lot of people get stuck. They get stuck where they are and they get comfortable. And if you're stuck and you're comfortable, you're in trouble. I'm telling you right now, you have to continue to grow, challenge yourself, and really, again, try to figure out what are you capable of achieving? What can you do? Like, what do you have in your skill set? And so for me, I'm always thinking about, okay, now that I'm healthy, now that I'm back in the game, now that I'm about to return to being one of the top speakers and supporting people who have abilities to, impact other people through their nonprofits. Like I have so many things that I want to be a part of that now I have to be challenging myself every day. And it's going to sound crazy, Trent. When I wake up, I want to have purpose as soon as I get up. I don't want to just get up and say, okay, what am I doing today? No. I'm already praying on it that night. I'm already thinking about it. I'm already meditating on it. And then when I wake up, I'm already at it. And even this morning, when me and you were texting, I was already asking you, okay, what time is it? I want to make sure I'm on this. I want to make sure everything's and I have, I'm about to go interview Sean Resper, played at Michigan State. I'm about to interview a number of people while I'm at the Final Four because, again, I'm already in my mind saying, okay, it's not just going to happen. I'm going to have to go make it happen if I want it to happen. And there you go. I think that says a lot right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I like I like your reminder. It's a daily thing. This is not like, oh, hey, next week, I often, get very cautious about the danger of getting too far out in the future. Like next week is like, hey, don't put off tomorrow what you could get done today. Right. Like, so that I wouldn't worry too much about week, because this day is what's been, and that's not given, right? That's not automatic. So we got to take care of what we can right now and get that done. And I think the other thing is that you talked about was comfort, right?
Yeah,
And for the people who really, every 1%er I've ever talked to, Derrick, talks about this. And man, when things get too comfortable, they get nervous because they've lived so much of their lives in this discomfort, and it served them so well, right? So well that they actually are quote unquote comfortable with being uncomfortable, right?
yeah,
So they have developed a skin for it. They've developed, and this is why I think you see some really high performing world beaters who take it to the 100-mile century runs and triathletes and 75 hard and all these things that people want to do to continue to challenge their bodies, because man, because they wake up one day going, man, I got a nice home. I got a nice organization. People are listening to what I got to say. People are buying my book. Like, hey, things are pretty good. Maybe I'll just go drive the car around today. And then they go, man, I'm not even contributing to anything. And so
right.
they look back and go, man, I got to do something that makes me uncomfortable now. Because they're not going to feel like they're going in the right direction until they get uncomfortable.
Well, and I want to add to that because at the end of the day, I mean, we get comfortable because we buy into ideas that were shown to us. But the reality is we all have unlimited potential. We all have unlimited upside, but we're too afraid, right? Stay with me. We're too afraid to try to do it because of what people are going to say, how they're going to look at us. Why not do it? I mean, you only get one time to be alive, so why not pursue your vision and your dreams and your purpose? And so for me, I'm excited because obviously I'm still here for a reason, right? I mean, everything I've already listed through my health challenges says a lot, but on the flip side of that, that means that I still have work to do and I have an opportunity to do it because I woke up this morning. This morning I woke up. So then let's make today be a great day. Real
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And you make a point about we are concerned about what people think of us, right? And we ask a lot of people questions in leadershipity like, hey, is it more important for you to be liked or to be respected?
Right.
And if folks really want to be liked, they really care what people think about them. And
Sure.
I have to remind a lot of people that you are going to be absolutely in shock when you think you care how much people think about you, when you find out how infrequently they actually think about you, right? It's like, oh, you know what they're thinking about me? Like, no, they're not thinking about you at all. They've got their own stuff they're thinking about. Like, people actually don't think that much about you. They've got their own
Right.
business, they've got their own stuff to do, they've got their own things, and people are really concerned with that. And it's definitely a challenge because we're hinging on these social media likes. You see these kids hanging on the edge of the seat going, oh, if I could just get 10,000 views and all these likes, like, come on, like, no.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what, that stuff really isn't that important because we're putting value on stuff that having a thumbs up or somebody liking your stuff doesn't mean that they value you,
Yeah.
right? Does that make sense? And so
Yep.
we got to make sure that we really just again take a step back, think about what we want to be a part of, think about where we want to invest our time, where we want to invest our energy, and the truth is people aren't going to like you regardless. So why try to make people like you? Because their opinion really doesn't matter. You just need to focus on what your vision is and what your purpose is, and let everybody else do what they're going to do, because at the end of the day, it's just you. It's you and God. That's all it is.
Yeah. Let's talk about your acronym for leadership. Give me that real quick because this is really good.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I started a program to really teach middle school kids and high school kids um, the definition of leadership. And so I created an acronym, and the first word is loyalty, education, accountability, discipline, empowerment, respect, service, honesty, integrity, and then obviously my powerful word is perseverance, because perseverance is what I've already showed you through this entire experience. So that
Yeah.
gives you a little bit, it gives you a little framework of how I am able to connect with, especially that next generation of leaders, because I want to talk to them about stuff that they have to really exercise and understand how to use.
Mm. I is integrity, right?
Yep.
Yep. I love it. I love it's a good itty. Um, Man, when you figure out that, wow, if I mean, take these right down. Loyalty is becoming a thing that's actually really at a challenge point to me now. I think that there's a lot of me, I going on around now, and I'm concerned that we're losing loyalty for the people that have been loyal to you. Like you're very loyal to your former coach. You're very loyal to your school. You're loyal to the programs, right? Um, and we build that because you see other people sacrifice in us. And wow, I see a lot of people sacrificing into these kids today, and they're not loyal to that sacrifice at all.
No, well, and part of that is, and I hate to say it, is we're just selfish. I mean, nobody wants to say it. I'll say it. We have this idea. Yeah, yeah. We're in this place where, it's really about what can I do, but then also what's in it for me. And the reality is as soon as you put yourself in the equation, it's really not about anybody other than you. And so we have to stop being so selfish. We have to stop being so self-centered. And then we also have to really, I think it's impacting our society in multiple ways. And so we have to really say, okay, who am I going to be? Right? Am I going to be a person that is always about me and I want to go on vacation and I want to do this and I want to go here and that? Or are you going to go, wait a minute, I got to be willing to sacrifice for something that's bigger than me, something that's greater than me, something that can help impact the world? Because at the end of the day, and I'm going to go back to the Leadership First acronym, your integrity says a lot. If we go back to the word integrity, it says a lot about who are you really, or are you wearing a mask and pretending like you're somebody, and then when the mask falls, then we get a chance to see who you really are, your character.
Mm.
That's
Yeah, I
deep.
think I often, think about that inserting yourself. I think that's a good way to say inserting myself into the equation is a zero proposition. That's a zero, right? And if I take Derrick, Unstoppable Boles times zero, we're still zero because I put myself into it, right? Like, all of a sudden I keep putting that zero back into it, and anything times zero is zero, right?
Right.
So it's like, man, we can't get that. So I love that. The education thing, also a real struggle. I mean, especially the kids, they don't see education as a tool to that next level. And this is one of the things I find frustrating when I'm telling kids, once you get the education, no one can ever take it away from you. Like it is one of the most strongest things that you can own ever. And I don't feel like there's value. They don't value it.
Well, and the funny thing is, I'm a first generation college student. So did my undergrad human services psychology, continued, got my MBA in human resource management, and I realize now that if I didn't have that background and the education to support, me becoming a top speaker and traveling the world, then people would question my credibility. Is what it would happen. They would question
Sure.
if I could deliver and if I had the information to, inspire their sales team or inspire their presidents or any of those things. So for me, I just think once you are disciplined enough, I want to make sure I say that you have to have discipline, and you can commit through to the entire process. Um, it really allows people to really quantify you as a person that you've earned the right for people to listen to what you have to say. But I think we live in a time now where everybody's about how can they make money. And I got to be transparent. That's where our mindset is. We want to figure out how can I make money instead of really just focusing on doing other things. So just some food for thought, some food for you to think about in this conversation.
Yeah, I think the discipline is still, hard thing to understand for young kids, hard thing to understand for, adults, really, quite frankly. I mean, and as a former strength and conditioning coach, I have certainly seen all the benefits of discipline. And admittedly, I'll be the same guy who goes on the road and goes, man, I'm too tired to work out. Maybe I'll order some room service and some bonbons and watch some, watch my favorite show, right? Watch me
Right.
some Ted Lasso or something. And so, that's an easy thing because it's an easy way to be comfortable. I'd like to just settle up and be comfortable. You talk about the accountability. I mean, I think that's a four-letter word sometimes in the environment today. Like people don't like it. They don't like to be held accountable. Yet we've seen the fact like holding people accountable, especially over time, has served. Like all your instructors held you accountable to get that MBA. If you don't do the work, if you don't do the stuff, you don't get the degree. The accountability is what served you to actually get the diploma that says, hey,
Right.
listen, I am accredited.
Right. Absolutely. And I think a lot of times that accountability piece, people are now uh, they're wavering. They're wavering on it because, and I hate to say it, a lot of it comes down to us being selfish as a society. You're thinking to yourself, okay, if I allow you to, check this box, what's in it for me on the backside of that? And that to me is where we're struggling across the United States of America. There's more to it than just, you know, what it's doing to individual communities. Like it's systemic. It's going from you know communities to states to the Pacific Northwest. Now we're talking about the United States. Like it's a bigger deal because that's what we've become, and that mindset is a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that mindset bleeds over to, a little later in this, right? The respect category, the serving others category. If it's all about me, there's no serving going on there. And certainly, man, I mean, everyone's so offended. The respect thing is tough for people to get back to. Like, hey, you got nothing good to say? You say nothing at all. That's okay. Like, you don't have to say something, and it doesn't have to be disrespectful. And man,
Well,
it's
well, and
it's a tough one.
I just want to add to that because I'm thinking about, I went to a breakfast the other day honoring Dr. John Wooden, and there was a lot of people there, but we were talking about the young lady from Iowa, Clark, one of the top scorers, and we were just talking about, this young lady who is one of the best players in women's basketball right now, probably will be one of the top picks in the WNBA, but we talked about her heart. We talked about her ability in her nonprofit and how, and not that she has a nonprofit that she talked about, like she volunteers and she's an all A student and she's very focused and she's very sharp. Like those are the people that I want to be around. I want to be around that type of energy because those are the people that are going to challenge me to be better. But see, people don't want to be around that because we live in a society where there's so much jealousy. It's hard for us to wrap our minds around that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that also, you talk about being around the people. If you're around people that are trying to develop all these leadership skills, right? And develop their perseverance, where is the room in there for my victimhood friends who are like, you know what, it's crap. The coach doesn't like me. I'm not playing because this. You know what? If I had like more expensive and better shoes, I'd be on the court.
Right.
It's this whole excuse victim mentality, tends to go into other people who also play that victim card. And then all of a sudden we're all mired in our own junk.
Well, and I want to add to what you're saying because I've never been a victim. But on the flip side of that, when you hang with people who are victims, and people don't want to talk about this, their energy will bleed onto you.
Yeah.
And so you have to be really aware, one, about what you bring to the table, your own personal value, and then you have to really evaluate your mindset, right? Am I in a victim mindset where all I have is excuses, or am I a solution-based mindset where all I have is finding solutions and moving forward? And I think if you mix those energy, you're going to get impacted regardless. So you got to decide, are you going to try to, cut ties and move forward so that you can be around people who have positive energy, or are you going to try to pull somebody up to help them go where they need to go? And those are things you got to ask yourself.
Yeah, it's a tough one for those out there who are running teams and coaching and developing your players. I can tell you that a lot of people have taken their number one attitude and put them in a pretty poor environment saying, oh yeah, they'll lift people up. But as you just kind of said, careful, because the others could bring them down. Like take your best people and all of a sudden be like, yeah, we're not getting paid well enough. Yeah, we're not getting the bennies that we used to have. Like, hey, wait a minute. I thought you were going to come in and lift everybody else up. But if there's a 5-on-1 campaign, guess what? Like, I don't like your chances. Like you were going into some negative energy, and it will get on you.
Well, and I'm gonna share this with you, and then it's just food for thought. I mean, you got to remember, first generation college student, MBA, multiple health challenges, played overseas. Like you already can tell, my energy is nothing but positive because I refuse to let it be anything other than positive. And that energy is invaluable. So when you go into a room, people look at you and they think, man, there's something about that guy. And we don't even know what it is, but it's really my energy, because remember, we're all emuting and sharing energy all the time. But people don't want to talk about that. But I'm telling you right now, it's super important, man. And we got to realize if people have negative energy, you got to kind of have to go, okay, wait a minute. Let me think about this relationship before we move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I've talked to a lot of people that had to minimize relationships in their life, even for just a short time. Just to make that, hey, I've got to go away from this relationship. And those are sometimes hard conversations. Like, especially if you're very close to a sibling who's mired in some negative energy, some negative self-talk, and it's always bad and things are rough. And you're like, man, I love you, and I love being around you, and I like spending time. But this spot that you're in today, it's negative. It's not serving you. I mean, it's not helping you in any way, and it's certainly not helping me. I'm going to back away from our discussion. I'm here for you, but I can't be with you in this manner all the time. And how can I help you and serve you is still something that, we're all trying to do as brothers and sisters here. But we gotta guard our own hearts, right? And we got to be careful of that. So
Absolutely.
So I love that. So let's talk about, Derrick, when you face these challenges, like, man, you like you said, you're kind of on your own in a hospital bed, just you and the Lord. And is there a time when, I mean, I don't even know if that point you can think about a future reality of going up in front of 1,000 people and doing a talk and, getting back to that space. But as you're picturing this around in your mind, is there something that you read or a quote that you kind of come back to that kind of sets you back on your way to action, to get back going up to get back to your line?
Yeah, it's from a phenomenal book that a lot of people don't refer to as much, the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. And so for me, even though I was in that space, I knew that in Isaiah that it was really telling me that if I could just keep my mind, stay close to God, make sure that if I did pass, if something happened to me, that I would never curse or turn or betray God, because the reality is the reason why we're having this conversation right now is because of God. So I just think we have to be willing to, continue to humble ourselves and take a moment to really think about, at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with us. It's really about how can we contribute to our society and how can we honor, what God's giving us as a gift. Because we all have gifts. You know that, right? We all got gifts.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's one of the things that a lot of people sitting in positions that aren't going well right now should understand. And that is that you do have gifts and you have what it takes. And maybe the seat that you're in is not where your gifts lie. And I think you got to have some courage to go out there and say, hey, listen. In fact, Derrick, I've almost felt like sometimes I've seen, especially young people with a lot of God-given gifts, and they're almost like hoarding it. They're like, oh, it's my gift. I don't share it with people. And I'm like, hey, that is not the intention. The intention is you were given this thing. Now you go out and give it to everybody. Like,
give it to
show
everybody.
them what you can do. Like, do go and be your best and be blessed that you have this gift, and be humble in that. Not like, hey, I've got this gift and you don't. But like, go out and show that. And like, because we're watching, you're watching that in action this weekend, right? Where you see a kid who's so gifted and you're like, oh my gosh, what a play. Like, man, is this kid gifted? Like, whether it's, the steel of, he's got ice in his veins. He's just, facing the adversity and leaning into it. And the same kid who's diving for balls, who's just an effort, and the same kid who's got the best skill you've ever seen, right? We all got different gifts.
Absolutely. Well, and that's why I love being here in Houston at the Final Four, because this is really, and I love this concept. We're getting a chance to see the best of the best of the best, and there'll be a national championship played on Monday, and I just think, we're going to get a chance to see a phenomenal game. But at the end of it, this is the platform, right? This is, we were at the Super Bowl together in Phoenix, NBA All-Star game in Salt Lake. But here, this is one of the biggest platforms. You get a chance to show the entire world. Everybody's watching, right? We're March Madness, who you are and what you bring to the table, and it can provide a unique opportunity.
Yeah. So as I thought about this goal, as an athlete who continued to persevere through, playing here, playing internationally, then going through this health, dangers and challenges that you went through, I stumbled on a Vince Lombardi quote this week. Perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence.
Yes.
And I just thought, man, like hey, listen, am I going to be perfect at every one of these leadership qualities? No, I am not. I'm going to muck that up. I'm going to make a mistake. I'm going to err. I'm going to misstep. I'm going to ask for forgiveness, admit my faults. But man, I'm going for that, right? I'm going for all those things. And I'm probably going to never attain perfection, but man, I might catch some excellence along the way.
Well, and the excellent piece is, and it's like anything, it only happens in spurts, but when you get there, try to ride it as long as you can. Because,
Right.
Even when I was going through my health challenges, I'm getting ready to come back to excellence. And so now, as I'm returning to excellence, now I realize how important it was, because I realize that that excellent piece is something that you have an opportunity to really impact as many people as you can in the time that you're in that space. And so I'm looking forward to moving into that excellent place because I think there's people who need to hear, my message, my story, my testimony, and encourage them to realize that they can do it, if they continue to fight and continue to believe and continue to stay close to God. And that's real talk.
That's real talk. All right. Real good, Derrick. Listen, Derrick, UnstoppaBoles Boles with us today. Check out his podcast. So thrilled you could be here, Derrick. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I want to just say this if possible, because I really want people to tune in. If you want, you always can go to my website, DerrickUnstoppable.com, or if you really want to connect, I'm on all social media platforms from TikTok to LinkedIn, Facebook, all that stuff. Derrick Unstoppable Boles, and we'll be able to connect because I want to see what God still has in store for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So everyone, you find Derrick there. Thanks so much, Derrick, for being with us. For everybody else on the Winners Find a Way show, join us every Friday, 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, on YouTube Live, LinkedIn Live, and Facebook Live. And then, of course, go check out the podcast. It's on all your podcasting networks. Like, you can tune in, and hey, even Spotify's adding video now, which I'm pretty pumped up about. So you get the podcast and the video now. Thank you, Joe Rogan. And so excited to see you next week. And thank you for joining us on another fabulous episode. Derrick Boles, UnstoppaBoles.